Hey guys, it's Mitch. How's it going? So you guys like the Punisher? Sure, right? Like, why not? You guys like Bernie Wrightson? Shit, yeah, right? How about 90s Bernie Wrightson? Yeah. I mean, like that'll be all right. Like you don't have like 70s Bernie Wrightson? No, we don't have 70s Bernie Wrightson. So how about a Punisher story drawn by Bernie Wrightson after the Punisher has offed himself and come back as an agent of the Lord? How's that sound? No, I don't really want to read that at all. Don't you have like, how about like Bernie Wrightson's Frankenstein? Can we say, no, we're looking at this today. We are checking out the first try at the Punisher for the Marvel Knights line, Punisher #1. So before we get started, I just got to remind you guys that the pre-launch page for the Blood Force #1 Kickstarter is up. Link is in the description, so go bookmark that so you'll be notified when that drops. It's going to drop on October 30th, but it's always good to have a reminder. So you'll finally be able to get your physical copies of Blood Force #1 as well as the PDF. There's 4 covers to choose from. You can also get prints and original artwork. And there's a couple of stretch goals where if we hit those, I'll be able to throw in some bonuses for physical copies. So go check that out. We're about a month away, and we want to make sure this thing gets fully colored as it should be, and that you guys get all the Blood Force material you can handle. All right, so enough about talking about good stuff. Let's talk about this. So the Marvel Knights line, kind of the precursor to Marvel Max, right? So as far as I understand it, this is 1998. Marvel had just filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and they were just like, we need to do something to make some money. The problem was they didn't have a whole lot of great artists anymore. They'd kind of all flown the coop a while back. All the Image guys had started their own titles. They'd hired a lot of the good artists that Marvel still had at that point. And even guys like Joe Quesada and Jimmy Palmiotti had started Event Comics so that they could release their own creator-owned character, Ash. So in 1998, the Heroes Reborn thing was dead and gone at this point, so they needed to try a new thing. So they reached out to Joe Quesada and Jimmy Palmiotti about starting up a new line that Joe Quesada and Jimmy Palmiotti would basically have editorial control over. So they went out and they hired a whole bunch of dudes. Some of the best guys left that weren't, like working at Image at the time. So the flagship title, I would say, is Daredevil, and that was penciled by Quesada, inked by Palmiotti, and they brought in Kevin Smith to write the thing. So the emphasis on these titles was kind of prestige format, just kind of maxing out the quality of the books. So yeah, bringing in big names. Hey, you get a famous movie guy for a writer. That always works, right? But they got the shiny paper. They've got the digital colors. Quesada on Daredevil is going to be a draw no matter what. That title would also go on to have issues by David Mack. And then later, Brian Michael Bendis and Alex Maleev. I'd say that was the flagship title. They also had Black Panther by Mark Teixeira. And they had Inhumans by Paul Jenkins and Jay Lee. And that was a pretty nice looking title, if I recall. I had the trade for that. And the deal for these was these were going to be outside of current Marvel continuity, where it was just kind of standalone stories. They didn't have to rely on the rest of the Marvel universe. So the writers in question could just, make up something good and not have to be weighed down by the burden of the character's past. Not all of it anyway. So in addition to all those other books, which sound pretty good, like Kevin Smith writing comics, I don't think worked out too well, but, at least the book looked good. And the other stuff had some cachet as well. So they also got Bernie Wrightson to draw a Punisher book, which doesn't really seem like a fit, and isn't. Oh, but what if we make this supernatural Punisher? Doesn't that make it different? Well, yeah, it makes it a little bit worse. I kind of get what they're doing. At this point, the Punisher, in the 80s and early 90s, the Punisher was a huge draw, where if you made him a guest star in a book, that was guaranteeing a sales boost. But that was a few years ago. The Punisher regular series ended at issue 104. I wasn't able to find a copy to order, so to me that says that the circulation was pretty goddamn low. They tried again a couple of years later with another ongoing series that did not last long. They had John Ostrander writing the thing, so that's, probably a good start, but they had like a bunch of no-name artists, and that kind of fizzled out after, I think it was like 18 issues. So in 1998, Punisher isn't exactly a dead property. We're still not too far removed from the height of his popularity. So they just needed to find some way to do kind of a soft reboot on the character and see if they could find the magic formula to try and make him popular again. They would eventually figure it out, but after a couple of missteps. This was misstep #1. So we can start with the cover. This is a good cover in that it's well executed. It's just a little confusing. This is going to be penciled by Bernie Wrightson and then painted by Joe Jusko. And Joe Jusko's kind of, he's gotten pretty big in the years just prior to this, what with the Marvel Masterworks series. And yeah, so he's kind of become a name. And this is right after Marvel's as well. So anything painted has this kind of wow factor added to it at this time. These days, Like, a painted cover is cool in that it can sometimes look better. But in the mid to late 90s, like, having anything painted in a comic of some kind would always have that, yeah, that additional sort of bump. Like how just a few years previous to this, if you'd added chromium to a cover or embossed it, that kind of thing. So, I mean, everything looks pretty good. You know, we got a low angle. He's all backlit. All the detail looks nice. Why does he have alien ray guns? We don't know yet. Why does he have, like, a sigil on his forehead? We don't know that either. We'll wish we didn't know in a few minutes. But yeah, you know, fine looking cover. Just not of anything I think we want to see. Okay, so this is at this time, Marvel is doing this on the inside cover where they do kind of a in case you missed it thing, you know, so they're going to give you basic background on the character. Here, when mobsters slew his family, Crank Castle vowed to avenge them. Trained as a Marine and equipped with the state-of-the-art arsenal, he now wages a one-man war on crime. It's funny, they didn't mention angels in there. Vengeance-driven vigilante seeking retribution against all criminals for the death of his wife Maria and his children, Christy and Frank Jr. And prior to the Punisher, Umlaut, having returned to his vigilante mission in New York, the Punisher socked, he socked the mistakenly accused of murder Khazar, Lord of the Savage Land. After a brutal struggle on the rooftops of the city, Frank realized that Khazar was innocent and disappeared. So, sounds like kind of an average issue, really, just a mistaken identity thing. I don't know what this is from. It's an interesting look. There's bits of it that look a bit like Cully Hamner, but I don't know if that's the case. I do like Cully Hamner, though. Okay, so we're going to start out in Brooklyn. A filthy alley like 1,000 others, but this one is special. This is where he died. So we're going to get a little shrine set up here in an alley, get all sorts of photos, and people are leaving like bread and water and wine and a picnic basket. So it's become a kind of shrine now, visited by those who have fallen so low they cling to the last rung on the ladder of humanity. The homeless and the poorest of the poor, the ones the costumes never even notice. Or just those so frightened they can't think of anywhere else to turn. And we got some woman come up, she's been punched up in her face. Not the most auspicious start. Like, everything looks fine, but like, if you're thinking, wait a minute, this is Bernie Wrightson? It's like, I can kind of see bits of it in, like, you know, in the bruising. That's about it, really. So people come here and they pray for, you know, help, justice, whatever. We cut to a little boy off somewhere. It's his birthday. That doesn't look great, does it? But he's not getting cake. He's getting to listen to his stepdad beat his mom. So he draws a little Punisher sign in his window. And down here we've got Eddie. Eddie is a junkie who is in need of a fix, and he's got some old man come up around the corner here, and he's trying to keep himself from mugging him. And he's just kind of fighting against his cravings, but he's able to hold off long enough for the old man to pass by. And then behind him, somebody says, "Good boy, you get to walk away tonight." So, I mean, you know, not to put too fine a point on it, this is the Punisher, and he can read people's minds, apparently. And from here we go to a drug house. And just, yeah, this is drug house bad. And then the door starts to get kicked in. And yeah, none of this art is looking particularly great. You know, like late 90s Bernie Wrightson didn't have what he had in, you know, the 60s or the 70s. I mean, you know, for one thing, he's got a schedule he's got to keep to, so he can't put in the kind of detail that he normally would. He's not even inking himself. You get the impression that these are, you know, like probably more than breakdowns, but not really full pencils. Not as full as Bernie could do with an unlimited schedule anyway. So we're not getting, you know, particularly great looking compositions on anything. He's going to save them, you know, for a couple of the bigger shots at least. The storytelling's reasonably clear, but stuff like this hand doesn't look great at all. You know, these faces aren't anything to write home about. Like, there's his natural knowledge of light and shadow. So at least he's got that going, where all the shadows are, you know, reasonably interesting. But, like, you know, if you're selling a book based off of Bernie Wrightson's reputation, you kind of want it to look a little better than this, I think. Oh, and here we go. All right, so, I mean, this is the cover. You know, like, this is exactly the cover. So this is what they're doing now, where, you know, Bernie Wrightson pencils a page, he takes the opening splash, and, you know, he, I guess, hands off a photocopy to Joe Jusko to paint, and then hands off the other one to Jimmy Palmiotti, because Jimmy Palmiotti's doing the inks on this. And I think that's going to be one of the reasons the art doesn't look too great on this. You know, Jimmy Palmiotti's okay. He can get the job done, but, like, there's no style to his ink is the problem. And with what Bernie's doing on the page, You kind of need a stylish inker to make this look good at this point, unfortunately. So this is going to be written by Christopher Golden and Tom Snagowski. Not really familiar. Christopher Golden sounds like maybe familiar. Pencil by Bernie, ink by Jimmy, colors by Brian Haberlin. That is the guy who I believe used to work for, I want to say Ollie Optics or something, as a color separator, and then started writing for Top Cow on stuff like Ballistic and Witchblade. So maybe they should have gotten him to write this thing. They didn't know he was a writer at that point, though. So anyway, yeah, this is our Punisher, and yeah, he's a supernatural angel Punisher now, and so he gets angel zap guns and the angel sigil on his forehead. You know, like this is also, I think, a thing because, you know, late 90s, again, angels were kind of big in media, you know, because we were getting close to the millennium and all that shit. So you had it coming up in movies, all that end of days stuff, the prophecy, all that. It's happening in comics as well with things like Ascension and, I guess, Evangeline. Like, it is just kind of going around at this time. Don't forget to get your shots. It's a shame that it hit the Punisher. It's a shame that it hit Bernie Wrightson. All right, so, I mean, we don't need to narrate a whole lot here. He busts in with his angel guns and braps everybody. First time he braps people, he remembers how he brapped himself just not too long ago and kicking this whole nonsense off. So he remembers his past except for his immediate past. He doesn't remember exactly why he is how he is, which is handy because then when he finds out, he can tell us. And the druggy people, they're all freaking out. They're running away because he's supposed to be dead. He's got a shrine in an alley and everything. And so, yeah, he just shoots everybody with his somewhat sci-fi looking Uzis and thinks to himself, they're not his guns. He doesn't even know where they come from. He just thinks of what he needs, reaches into his coat, and it's there. And he pulls out kind of a flamethrower and lights people the fuck up. And yeah, so that's the deal with the Punisher now. He's got a trench coat like Mary Poppins' handbag, and he keeps pulling out weapons that don't look particularly well designed because, I don't know, they're designed by a dude who's used to drawing like 18th century Victorian houses. And yeah, we're not trying too hard to make anything look particularly interesting. Again, apart from the shadow, that seems to be, I'm naturally that's going to be Bernie Wrightson's focus, but we're not going particularly creative with page layouts at all. I mean, 9-panel grids, it's good for storytelling, and he's keeping the images reasonably clear at least. I don't know, he catches up to the guy here. This is the last guy. Frank doesn't have any kind of problem walking through fire by the looks of it. And I guess he figured this guy, maybe he's got the same thing. It tosses him down. Oh, no, he doesn't. Fire just burns him. Crazy how that works. And then the roof gives way and Frank falls back into the burning building. And that's it for this iteration of the Punisher, and we all heaved a sigh of relief. Oh, no, shit, it's still going. Firefighters show up afterwards. Frank walks out, and they just kind of ignore him because, it's Brooklyn in the kind of Marvel universe. If a guy walks out of a burning building, you just go, oh, yeah, okay, so he's one of those guys. Little bit of backstory, because it's a number one. You got to have some backstory. We're still not learning why Frank offed himself, and I don't think we will in this issue. We're just going to cut to a cathedral somewhere. So until 1989, when it was desanctified, this was the Church of St. Tarcissus. It's just another building now, but there are those who need very badly to believe that this is still the house of God. And yeah, just get a couple of long hair looking yuppie types praying in here, and then some demon comes up behind them, says, I don't think he's listening. And he's very chatty and kind of snarky. And again, not particularly well designed. And when I was reading this, I flat out forgot that this was Bernie Wrightson at this point. Like, the cathedral looks okay. Nothing else on here looks particularly good. It's fine. That's about it. This stuff here with the demon guy, this is Olivier. He does not look great at all, I gotta say. So, okay, he gets his Spider Jerusalem minions to leap out of the shadows and jump the two long hair yuppies. They do manage to hold one down. The other one, he's gonna go running. So it leaps through the window, and oh my god, he got angel wings. They were both angels all the time. So the one of them got away, the other one not so much. So Olivier, the demon, he's seen the prophecy. He knows if you do CPR on somebody, you can suck out their soul, and that's what he does. Some of this stuff, looks all right. Like, this is a nice looking shot here. that's kind of it for this page. It doesn't help that there's no design put into what I assume is going to be the big bad guy for this series. Oh, hey, look, it's Parasite Eve. Remember that shit? Because, like, this is a 4-issue series. If we're introducing a bad guy, he's going to be the bad guy. And we're going to hear the story of Olivier about how he was cast out of heaven because he sided with Lucifer in the rebellion. So he went down into hell, but then he was cast out of hell. So nobody likes this guy. And was born to a mortal woman. And yeah, just born as baby fucking JFK. That's a pretty rough looking baby right there. And this is him in his human form these days. I'm not sure if it's a case where if he doesn't, feast on angel souls, then he reverts back into his demon form, or just, this is how he felt like looking at this time. Doesn't really matter too much, I guess. Some of these panels look like this panel here looks fine. It looks pretty good. There's nothing good in this one. I imagine he's having to go pretty fast. Like, Bernie Wrightson has been on a monthly schedule before when he was doing Swamp Thing. But, not very often, and not for a while at this point. All right, so now we're going to cut back to, this is the woman who had her eye punched in earlier in the comic. She's gone back home, and her husband is like, why'd you leave? And she's like, I just wanted to go for a walk. He's like, you wanted to go for a walk? You get the feeling that would have been his response to pretty much anything. I went to get the mail. The mail! Only before he can swing on her, the lights go out. And looks back. And gets thwacked right in the jaw. So the Punisher has come to this house to stop this domestic assault. Why? Because she came to the alley at the beginning of the issue and she prayed for this. So, hey, there you go. And he gets very worked up about it. He's like, never, ever, ever hit her again. And he keeps punching him until I guess he gets knocked out. So yeah, this is her chance to get away now while he's unconscious. Only she doesn't want to get away right away because she recognizes him. She realizes he's Frank. And all of a sudden, his umlaut goes away. And he gets his pupils back. So you just got to say his name to turn him back into a person, I guess. And apparently he knows her because she was the sister of a buddy of his. And they picked an odd time for it. They decided on the period in between when he got back from Nam, but before his family was killed. Apparently he would shove his friend's sister's nose in ice cream and act like a teenager, even though, for one thing, he probably would have been 30, and he also would have helped kill all sorts of people over in Vietnam, so that's just a little bit odd. If you want an innocent Frank, maybe go with pre-war Frank, but whatever. He doesn't like that she remembers him dousing her nose in ice cream, so he's gonna jet out the window here. Oh shit, and him stopping by, it looks like it cleared up the bruise around her eye, so fuck me. That turned out well. So now we're going to cut back to that alley, which Frank uses as a hideout. So he's just going to lounge in the corner, examining this cross and eating the bread, be like, that's a nice cross. While he leans on the picnic basket. This is getting pretty bad. More flashbacks to, I don't know, just stuff when he was before he was the Punisher. So while he's munching on his bread, and, I don't know, evaluating the cross. I wonder how much this cross is worth. He sees his family come down the alley. This is Maria and Frank Jr. and Kippy, whatever her name was. It was probably Kippy, right? And he goes running after them. And he's like, what the fuck? What are you even doing here? And they're like, come after us, Daddy. Fucking talk to me. And finds this feather here. Climbs up a little bit further. It turns out he's found that yuppie angel that we saw earlier in the book. Apparently he got injured somehow. He gets a little closer. He's like, where's my family gone to? They weren't actually here. Sorry about that, man. And, it's the fucking Punisher, so naturally he's going to just, grab his fucking face. It's like, maybe you save that tidbit for later. But, yeah, basically just projected an image to get him to come up to the rooftop, which I guess was the rooftop, directly overhead. That works out fine when you're doing, angels and whatever you're doing here. So, okay, he's an angel who was supposed to watch over humanity. He didn't do a very good job. But he's going to stick around long enough to tell Frank to go to Milton's bar and ask for Gadriel, because that will take him to the next point of the story. And then he ignites for no particular reason, because again, I don't even think he really even got punched in that sequence. They kind of came at him. He punched another dude. Maybe he hurt his knuckles so bad, just so bad, you guys. And then he jumped out the window. Maybe his shock. Could have been shock too. But yeah, he burns up. So, okay, at least Frank has the next piece of information. So naturally, we're going to follow Frank to Milton's. On his way in, he runs into Damien Hellstorm. It's like, okay, yeah, sure. Are we going to be bringing him into Marvel Knights? Like, maybe. I don't know. They might have done that. And yeah, he's just going to be kind of cryptic for a second before walking away. And then Frank walks into the bar. And, like, everything here looks okay. And that's about it. Nothing looks special, like, yeah, this is better than house style stuff for the most part. But you gotta remember, like, this is Bernie Wrightson. And this is, like, we've touted Bernie Wrightson as coming to Marvel Comics. It's like, this is, for a number one, this is theoretically a big deal. And this kind of looks like ass. At least as far as Bernie Wrightson should be able to do. All right, so he's going to walk up to the bar. And there's Gadriel sitting there. And it's another yuppie, so that guy's got wings under his shirt. And he tries to, like, glad hand Frank here. And Frank does a Rorschach and crushes his hand around the glass. And this is kind of the low point of this comic, really. So we're going to find out who Gadriel is. Turns out Gadriel, yeah, he's another angel. In particular, he's a guardian angel. Not just any guardian angel, he's Frank's guardian angel. And he's done a shitty job because he wasn't supposed to let Frank's family die at Central Park. So now he's sitting here in this bar getting drunk. And once Frank hears who he is, he reaches into his Mary Poppins coat and pulls out his Angel Zap gun. And says pray. And that's where we're ending the issue. The fidelity got turned up a little bit towards the end. You think about how that first splash looked, though? That looked a little bit better than that one. Yeah. So he's already kind of running out of steam. Oh, God, I wonder how issue 4 of this series looked. But yeah, that's Angel Punisher number 1. Hey, Buffy. There's another thing with angels in it. Yeah, that was pretty bad. So, I mean, it's bad enough that they just kind of let it run out after issue 4 and go, yeah, maybe we don't go back to that. And it's not like Marvel Knights as a property did poorly. It did well, from what I understand. Like, so well that not too long after this, Joe Quesada became editor-in-chief of Marvel. And they decided to give the Punisher another try. They managed to rope in Garth Ennis and Steve Dillon hot off the pages of Preacher. And I'm not particularly fond of that run of the Punisher. Like, it started with a 12-issue miniseries, and then there's a continuing series after that. And it seems very much like the Punisher in the Preacher world, where we have to have outlandish characters in every issue. Like the Russian, like Spacker Dave, like Ma Nucci, after she's been thrown in the polar bear pit. So it's Frank Castle as Jesse Custer, only we can't go rated R. So that just wasn't my thing. And again, it was inked by Jimmy Palmiotti. And Jimmy Palmiotti on Steve Dillon, I think, has never worked. I've never seen it work well. He can do a fine job on Joe Quesada. I would like to see Joe Quesada inked by somebody else, but that just kind of never really happens, does it? I still say I'd love to see Joe Quesada inked by P. Craig Russell, but I don't think that ever happened, unfortunately. But yeah, that's Punisher Angel Coat number 1. I'm not reading any more of this. This whole thing sucks. I did get more Punisher number 1s that we can check out soon, so we'll hit those. But for this one anyway, that's going to do it. Thanks very much for watching. If you like this video, please hit the like button. It helps with all the algorithm stuff. If you want to see more, hit subscribe. And if you really want to help out, in the description, there's a link to my Patreon. If you go subscribe there, that gives you access to everything I do. So all sorts of videos, everything to do with the Blood Force comic and everything to do with the Kickstarter. You can also follow me on Instagram and DM me there for commissions. So yeah, that'll do it. We're getting into October now. I'll have some good Bernie Wrightson for us to look at real soon, I promise. But for this one, that's going to do it. Thanks again for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.